It is trying. We are live now. Damon, if we lose me over here, Kaden complained a little earlier today that Papa, look, the internet is moving kind of slow. So you got all the questions over on your side. So if we lose me, you keep going. I'll come back in.
Yes, sir. We'll make it happen.
All righty. All right.
Hello, Central Louisiana, all my people.
So we're gonna go ahead. We'll give them a few seconds because we were on a hold there for a few seconds, and then in a few minutes I'm gonna go ahead and kick it off. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk Show on UrbanCast. I'm Jack, and I'm joined tonight with my co-host Damon. Today we have a very special guest with us, Senator Elbert Guillory, who's running for the 6th Congressional District here in the state of Louisiana. The district spans from Shreveport to Baton Rouge, and it frogs over there. It hops over there to Opelousas, where Senator Guillory is from. And we are excited to hear about the senator's vision and his plans for, the 6th district community. Before we dive in, we encourage everyone to share this broadcast and participate by asking questions in the form of comments out there. Remember, one of our main goals is to get everyone, especially our young voters, to get out and go vote. And if you're not registered, www.govote.com here in Louisiana, and you can go register to vote. Your voice matters. Now let's get started. Welcome there, Senator.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for having me this afternoon. I deeply appreciate what you're doing and the way that you're doing it.
All right, Senator Guillory, first and foremost, it's definitely a pleasure. Anytime I get to talk to someone of your status, it's exciting to me. You serve the people in several different capacities throughout your career. But can you start telling us, of course, a little bit about yourself and your background, and what was your motivation to run for the 6th Congressional District?
It all started back in 1959. I was 15 years old. I went to the public library to get a book. Black folk could not get books from the public library. That was the day of my first arrest.
Wow.
That was the first of a series of encounters with the police, arrests, and I've been a warrior from that moment until now.
Hey, Damon, Senator, can you hear me?
Yes, indeed.
You can hear me. I think Damon froze. I didn't freeze. Hey, Damon, you there?
Yeah, I'm back.
Oh, okay. We had
the iron and Jack to his internet and mine froze up.
But we're trying to do this thing the modern way, and so sometimes we're dependent upon the internet to get it done. So back in 1959 is when it all began, and I guess the big question is, what did your career look like in the political arena? Things of that nature.
At that time, I wanted to go to college and decided I was going to become a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Southern University. I was 16 as a freshman. I became the all-time youngest editor-in-chief of the newspaper at 17. And of course, I was expelled for the stuff that I wrote when I was
18. So you were 17 and the editor of the Digest at Southern.
All-time youngest.
All-time youngest. So no one has replaced you yet.
That's an unbroken record.
Hey, see, Damon, that's that tie. The Digest is a Southern journal there on campus there. So okay, that's some interesting tidbit right there.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's very interesting. I always tell people if I would have graduated high school in Louisiana, I would have went to Southern, but I graduated high school in Georgia, so I went to Georgia Southern.
That's why you don't have that Karen Crow accent that I hear in your voice.
Yes, sir. That's right.
Well, when I got expelled, I was expelled at gunpoint,
Mm-hmm.
and the gentleman, who was a very large deputy, with his badge on his chest, uh, double barrel shotgun, sawed off shotgun in his hand.
Mm-hmm.
He was very eloquent as he escorted me off campus and told me that because of my mother and my sisters, my activities in civil rights were placing them in danger, so that I should really leave the state of Louisiana.
Wow.
So I joined the Navy, spent 4 years in the Navy, finished my undergraduate work while I was in the Navy,
Mm-hmm.
accepted at 5 or 6 of the nation's top law schools, including Harvard's Law School, Rutgers Law School, Columbia, a few of the others. And I accepted the scholarship at Rutgers. I'm a former Rutgers law professor now,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, a graduate. Practiced law for about 53, 52 years. Ran my first state agency at the age of 29. Worked in the Nixon administration for a couple of years, and served in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Illinois, and then came back to Louisiana and state senator, state representative here. And of course, I'm a Baptist preacher in addition to those things.
Now, where are you a Baptist preacher at there, Senator Guillory?
Pleasant Green Baptist Church in Alexandria, Louisiana.
All right.
Those good are there.
That's
And
right.
just for a few people out there who may not know, Rutgers is the state university of New Jersey. So that's what Mr. Gillard. That's one of the probably the top 10 law schools in America. So that's an amazing accomplishment within itself.
Top five, my brother.
The top five. He just clarified. All right. All right. Senator, let me ask you a couple. I want to dive right on into the questions concerning public safety and crime rates, especially here in Alexandria, here in Central Louisiana. And I know that you are over at one of the churches right here in District 3, the city district number 3, right on Willow Glen River Road. And that area is certainly is not the worst area in Alexandria. I think crime is bad all over it, and when it comes to crime throughout the state, the 3 districts or the 4 big cities that you're going to represent, Opelousas, Alexandria, Shreveport, Baton Rouge, crime is prevalent, and probably per capita wise, Alexandria is probably at the top of the list in all 3 of them, although we're not the largest in the size. Certainly we don't have the volume that the other ones do, but per capita we're right there with them. What how do you plan to address the crime in not only in the urban city areas, but in our rural communities as well? How is the job of U.S. representative going to allow you to help us? Because we are actually having some serious problems here in Louisiana.
You are absolutely correct. In each of those major cities, we have a major crime problem, and the victims of those crimes just happen to look like me and you. Members of the Black community are being victimized, being tormented at every turn. Our streets and communities are really overrun by thugs and drugs. So what we have to do is get the police. We've been fighting against the police for several years. We've got to get the police to come back in and do their job of protecting our people. The first order of business of government is to protect our people. They're not being protected right now. So the police officers have to come in and do their jobs. Prosecutors have to prosecute and impose consequences for bad behavior. We can't just have somebody do a murder, a carjacking or something, and then come in and turn them back on the streets the next day. That cannot be. That cannot be. That's part of the crime problem. We have to address the prosecutors, we have to address the judges, and of course we have to address the police. And I intend to be a strong voice for protecting my community from Washington, D.C. I want to make sure, look, we have money that we're sending all over the world. We got to send some of that, and that's to protect people all over the world. We got to send some of that money here in the 6th District to protect the people of the 6th Congressional District.
Yes, sir. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right about that. And I mean, obviously, we do have a big crime issue in the 6th District. One of the derivatives of that, most people will say, is economics. The economic disparity and the lack of livable wages are significant issues in the 6th District. Specifically, I mean, Alexandria is where we're based out of. So in our area, it's extremely a problem. So what strategies do you have to create more sustainable job opportunities for our residents in the 6th Congressional District?
The first thing that we must do is educate our people. Our public school system is a failure right now. Only 13% of our students can read, write, and compute at grade level, which means that we're turning out a whole bunch of young people who are not prepared for the job market. So
Right.
we have to address, back when I was a kid, we taught agriculture science, we taught industrial arts, carpentry, welding, all kinds of skills. We don't do that anymore. And we have to start doing it again. Schools have to prepare our students for life after school with some skills. That's the first thing. The second thing that we have to do is get more businesses to come back into the 6th District. We used to have, for example, right here in St. Landry Parish, we had a big clothing factory, about 5,000 people sewing. We had another one not far from where I'm sitting right now that produced some mechanical widgets, and there were thousands of people working right there. Well, politicians have sent all of that stuff out of the country. All those underwear that those ladies were making, 98% of the people in America wear underwear, and we don't make one single pair of underdrawers in America.
Wow.
That doesn't make sense to us. So we've got to bring those jobs back and put our people to work.
And Dave, I don't mean to cut in on you there, but that is something that's really important. Bringing the jobs back, because without those jobs, you in the downstream jobs that they actually create, these folk, they were still here. They just don't have anywhere to go work, and thus the crime problems that we are currently having. So, if you want to expound on that a little bit, about how do you think we make it advantageous for businesses to relocate back here? Because just north of us, up in I think in Boyce, or either Colfax, one had a Jordache manufacturer that was in that area, and the textiles. And so apparently Louisiana was heavy in the textiles at some point in time. So how do we make it more attractive for those businesses to come back to Louisiana?
Government is going to have to treat businesses fairly. We have to make some incentives for those businesses to come back into America. And we have to make sure that when they come back, they're paying decent wages for decent work. If we can do that, then we'll be putting our people back to work. Mm-hmm. And in Washington, D.C., I'll be a strong voice for exactly that. I want to bring back the businesses, and pay the employees. A perfect example is the present administration has a war against oil and gas. We've killed thousands, actually hundreds of thousands of good paying jobs in Louisiana. We sent them away because of this war against oil and gas. I want to end the war against oil and gas. We have to be good stewards of our lands. We have to drill responsibly, but we have to protect, not only protect tomorrow, but we have to protect today. There'll be no tomorrow if we don't protect today. We have to hire people, pay them today. It is today's wages. We have to drive down the cost of gasoline and electricity today so that people can afford those things.
That's right. That's right.
To pivot onto that, just I think it was on Tuesday. On Tuesday, the Louisiana Illuminator highlighted that 1 in 5 Louisianians depended on food supplements. 1 in 5, that's 20% of the population. You know, there is a big food insecurity, you know, because of this terrible economy that we have here in the state of Louisiana. And that's compounded right here in Alexandria with a terrible economy as well. We have a city that literally operate, the majority of its operating budget come from the sale of utilities. And that's a whole different thing. And then we know that Congress may or may not have some help in it. How do you plan to tackle this food insecurity that many people are experiencing right now? And just to get you, since you're familiar with the Alexandria area, you know, when you take a look at when the Central Louisiana Food Bank came online, they were kind of like one warehouse. They are a complex over behind Sam's at this point. And the sheer amount of food that they're passing out here in Central Louisiana is almost amazing at this point. How do we battle this thing called food insecurity here?
I think we do two things. The first is this inflation that we're battling in our economy. We're spending a lot of money, throwing a lot of money outside of the country, billions and billions into other countries. We have to stop that kind of spending and take care of America. That's one of the things we have to do. We have to bring down the prices. Food up 50%, gasoline up more than 50%. All of that, we have to bring those prices back down, and government has to be able to do that. But the third thing that we have to do is support farmers. Much of CD 6, much of Congressional District 6 is agricultural. And so we have to support those farmers and make sure that they can grow the food that we need to eat and distribute that food. The farmers will grow it, the truckers will deliver it, and the truckers will be able to deliver it without paying those exorbitant gasoline and diesel prices. So it all works together. Drive down the inflation, help the farmers, and feed our people.
Senator Guillory, it's interesting that you mentioned the farmers. We know, like you said, we know the 4 major cities in CD6, but it is a majority agricultural district. So knowing that it's a heavy farming area, how do you plan to increase federal protection for Louisiana's farming and seafood industries from unfair trade policies? The similar thing that you said about the textile industry, where they're sending that overseas. We're starting to see that now with our food supply. A lot of food is coming from overseas. A lot of our seafood is coming from some of the Asian countries, Vietnam, China. So, how do you plan to increase federal protection for Louisiana's farmers and the seafood industry from unfair trade practices?
There's some regulations and rules that the present administration has been imposing on farmers. I won't get the the government out of our agricultural fields and let farmers farm. Another thing that I want to do is to support farmers. For example, if we raised shrimp, if we had shrimp farms, we eat a lot of shrimp here. Much of the shrimp that we eat is foreign shrimp. Let's raise our own. Let's have shrimp farms. So it's a matter of encouraging farmers, working with the LSU Ag Center, the Southern University Ag Center, to make sure that we support farmers with the knowledge that they have, working with the U.S. Department of Agriculture to make sure that the money is available for farmers. They can borrow it and pay it back very, very quickly. If they could grow 1 million pounds of shrimp in just 700 acres. They could grow 1 million pounds of shrimp in a year. And that's a lot of money. So all we have to do is support, get government off the backs of the farmers.
All right.
What's your thoughts about the Affordable Care Act as we see it right now? You know, according to some sources, there are way more people that have health care in place at this point. What's your thoughts about the Affordable Care Act as it stands right now?
It's not working right now. Too many people do not have affordable health care. We have to have, in this country, everyone should have access to good health care. When we employ more people, they'll have employee health benefits. So that's one way to handle it. But until we transition people into work, the government is going to have to step up and make sure that folks have adequate health care. And it's not just for everybody, but for specific folks like the elderly. My God, the veterans. The VA system is absolutely broken. People who have sacrificed and lost limbs and emotionally injured can't get good medical care from the VA. That's one of the things that I'm going to fight very hard to change. But health care for all of our people. If we can afford to spend billions and billions of dollars to foreign countries, just spread it all over the world like butter, just spread it all over the world. If we can do that with billions of dollars, then we ought to be able to take care of our people at home first.
That's right. That's right. Senator Guillory, we kind of spoke a little bit about it earlier about it's important to get, about childhood education, things of that nature. But one of the things that we know that education is crucial for our kids' future. So, an educated person is the statistics show that if you're educated, you're pursuing education, then your chances of being successful and least likely to be a criminal, you'll be successful more if you're educated. So, but we have to motivate the kids at a younger age to understand that the education is key, and that doesn't necessarily mean college education. That could be an industrial trade. So one of the things you mentioned, like you said, when I was in school, as early as the 90s, we still had welding programs, They had industrial arts. They still had carpentry programs, and you would have people because college is not for everybody, you know. And you would have people that would graduate from high school and they would go immediately go work at the factories, doing welding, or go work for a company as a carpenter, intern, things of that nature. But it's something that we have to start young and getting the kids motivated to understand at a young age that that's something that they need to be pursuing, and they need to be focused on their education at an early age, and not just say, okay, I'm out of high school, now what do I do? So what are your plans to secure federal funding for early childhood education and support higher education systems in Louisiana, and maybe bring back some of those programs that basically for financial reasons the school systems, or either for other reasons, the parish school systems have eliminated those programs in some of the areas. So what plans or what are your plans to secure federal funding to ensure that those type of programs and the importance of education is stressed to our kids?
I'm going to work my fingers to the bone to make sure that early education is supported, a strong public school system is supported. And until the public school system is able to get its act together, I'm going to support charter schools, private schools, Christian schools, any other kind of school where a child can go until the public school system is functioning fully again. Money, the government has a lot of it. So let's invest it in educating our children. My granddaddy, right where I'm sitting right now, my granddaddy was born a slave on this property. When slavery was over, he stayed. He bought this property. He started a church, first black church, Bill Zion Baptist Church, a block and a half from here. And the second thing he did was to start the first black school so that his kids could be educated. His daughter, my mother, she started off as a maid. She got educated. She became a teacher and a school principal. My mama had 3 children. Because of education, 3 children. One was a Rutgers law professor. One is still a medical professor, doctor, of course, at Baylor University in Texas. The other one was a surgical nurse at MD Anderson. Education, up from slavery, up from poverty, through education. It's in my heart. It's in my family. It's in our DNA. I believe in it. I want it for every kid. I want that same opportunity.
Oh yeah, that's an amazing. That's amazing that your grandfather created that. So salute to him from being a slave to creating that type of family legacy. And I mean, like you said, you've got a quite of a legacy yourself that you've established, and then your siblings have quite a legacy they have. So just from him doing that, extending over to you, you create those branches from those trees. So that's quite awesome to hear that, because we don't understand the value. I have a son right now he's 14. He's I mean, I guess you can consider it, by the Mensa score, he's considered a genius. But when I go to an event and he's there with the other kids, of course he's the only kid of our skin color in these programs. So we go there and ask these other kids, you say, hey, what are you gonna be when you grow up? And these kids are in the 7th, 8th grade, and they say, I'm gonna be a chemical engineer, or I'm gonna be a doctor, or I'm gonna be a pharmacist. Well, my son, we didn't have that education backbone. He has the smarts to do it. Well, you ask him what he's gonna be, he don't know yet. And I fault myself for that, because I didn't get college educated until later in my life. So I never really understood. Now I understand, the value of it. Like, hey, son, you got to figure out what you want to be so we can start taking the opportunity to see if that's what you really want to be. So when you don't introduce these kids to new stuff, new opportunities, when they don't get to go to museums anymore on field trips, when they don't get to go to the power plant and see how electricity works, when they don't get to go to these places and see how that works, then they're not motivated to pursue jobs or pursue education in that field. And then, or it could be like in my situation, I was not college educated. My wife was not college educated until later in her life. We both have college degrees now, but that came later in life. So just, stressing to the kids early that it's important to not only be educated, know what you want to be and pursue it, and have an understanding on that. So it's good to hear, your ideas on that, and just understand, I think a lot of people in our community, especially CD6 and in that area, the value of education, the importance of it, and how it directly relates to everything is not being stressed enough in our community. So
Man,
from a, oh, I'm sorry.
I just said amen and amen.
Yeah. So when you look at it, we're talking about the concept of education and what have you, and we see where we are right now. And when you look at the whole concept of the things that we have really allowed to 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 disintegrate, or just to collapse on itself, one of the things is education and information. So as a representative, how will that position be able to enhance what we're doing right now? Because right now, when you look at inner city Alexandria, you know our schools. Well, one bright spot in Alexandria, Damon and I will say it all the time. If you look at our academic system here in Alexandria, on not only the K-12 organization, but our colleges and the universities here as well are doing pretty well. They could do better. We can catch a lot more at the early age and catapult them. They are one of the bright lights in our community. Can they do better? Yeah, they can do a whole lot better. But they are a bright light. It's just that a lot of those products, if you call the kids the products of it, we're exporting all of those products, and we're not importing anything back. They're not coming back home. They're moving off to other places. And so how do we quickly, a short-term goal, that what's a in your idea, what's a short-term goal we can say, hey, let's start this at kindergarten, and in the next 12 years we should see an improvement in the academics in our kid. When the little kid that's in Southeast Alexandria can say, hey, Damon, I do want to be that engineer, and the kid in West Alexandria can say, I want to be an engineer. What can we do right now with our kids over here in Southeast Alexandria to help motivate them and what can our school systems do to help move that forward?
I think we really have to fund early childhood education. But 75% of our children are born into single family homes, no
Mhm.
daddies around. We need to fund churches so that they can have mentorship programs so that we can get to young men, young boys at 4, 5, 6 years old and teach them things like respect discipline, and put them on the track to go to some skill. Too many of our kids decide they want to play football or basketball, and that's great. I was a football player. I was a 230-pound linebacker, 4.37 in the 40. But we need more than athletes. We have to have some doctors. We have to have some lawyers. We have to have some engineers. We have to have some farmers, some plumbers, some electricians. So we have to, through the school system and the churches, those are the two. And any others that you can think of, just tell me so I'm going to go and try to get the money for them. But right now, I want to fund early childhood education, and I want to fund churches who are doing mentorship programs for little boys.
Yeah, one of the things me and Jack always talk about, one of the core tenets, at some point, I lived in Alexandria, Rapides Parish for 20 years, but unfortunately during COVID, I had to relocate my family to Florida, so I'm here in Florida. But one of the things that eventually I'll move back home. Jack will run for some office, and I'll be his chief of staff.
That's what he keeps saying.
But one of the things that we always discuss is 6 to 16. You know, if you touch them at 6 and you keep them till they're 16, you turning out, you flipping everything on upside his head. And like when you mentioned about the kids, I'm a product of a single parent home, no father, no relationship with a father, but I had several male influences. I also had the church. We had church league basketball, we had baseball, we had all of that. So it is incumbent on those, like you said, those people, church mentorship programs. It is important to reach those kids at an early age so they understand that there is other alternatives. And one of the things I tell my basketball team kids is I always tell them, I say, it's when they have the NBA draft, they draft 60 players. Within 5 years of them 60 players, only about 20% of them are still going to be in the NBA. So that means 12 players every year out the draft make it to the NBA or stay in the NBA. You know how many engineers that we need every year? You know how many doctors? You know how many lawyers? You know how, like you said, electricians, thousands, hundreds of thousands. So I won't say unfortunately, because it does create some good products, like Jack called the kid. Athletics does give you a way out, but unfortunately, I won't even say unfortunately, but we focus on athletics and hoping our kids make it to the pros or hoping they get a college scholarship from athletics, where the opportunities are way more bigger on the academic side than the athletic side.
Absolutely.
I tell the kids all the time, I say, if you're a doctor, if you're a doctor and you play basketball and while you was in college you became a doctor and you tear your ACL, so guess what? You still gonna be a doctor with a torn ACL. Right. Your basketball career might be over with if you tear your ACL and you just play basketball. Your basketball career over with. But if you got that education piece behind it, and your sports career over, because your sports career gonna end unless you LeBron James, time catch up to everybody when it relates to athletics. So you got 40 years after your athletic career to still work and be a regular part, a regular member of society. So, we need to have those programs where we say, okay, we gonna play sports, but we gonna create some engineers, we gonna create some contractors, we gonna create, some people who can create jobs and bring that economic viability back to our communities. But one of the things,
I'm sorry.
Oh no, you go ahead, sir.
If you want to see something sad, I'll just piggybacking on what you said, what you were saying. If you want to see something sad, go to any hospital. The number of foreign doctors and foreign nurses that have to be imported to take care of our people because our schools are not producing doctors and nurses. It's a shame. And we can do it. We can teach our people to take care of ourselves.
Just switching gears a little bit, of housing. Housing is another big issue that's really big within our district. You know, the lack of affordable housing, adequate housing, and different things of that nature. What initiatives would you advocate that would increase the stock of new affordable single family homes here in not only Alexandria, but the question is basically the same for each one of the municipalities as well?
Government has to ensure that we have adequate housing. It's that simple. We fight against government regulations. Government gets into just about every business, and they put a lot of regulations and a lot of rules on that business. So a lot of landlords are getting out of the business. And the cost of operating property right now has been, because of inflation, it's been driven so high that a lot of landlords are just not operating. So we have to deal with the inflation and get the prices down again. And government is going to have to get in. And I'm not talking about creating some some projects. I'm talking about building housing all around the city where people can have a nice, decent place to live, good neighborhood, safe, that whole thing.
Well, when you talk about those regulations, you know, like at the federal level, you know, a lot of the concerns about policy at the local level is controlled at the local level. And so a lot of the problems, you know, with affordable housing, you know, at the local level is, you know, the local municipality imposing all sorts of rules and regulations, you know, in place to access this inventory of properties that are there. And sometimes we go way beyond, you know, the national standards, you know, like the building codes and different things of that nature. We adopt things, and once we adopt those things, we enforce them in one area and we waiver in another area. So, you know, how can the federal government come in and take a look at some of these unfair practices that are going on daily within our local communities?
We have a national housing authority, and we have the Justice Department.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those can take a look to make sure that unfair practices are stopped and eliminated. And I want to make sure that the Justice Department is out there making sure. I want to make sure that the are you there?
Yeah, we're here. Your camera is pointed up. I can hear you, and your camera is pointed up toward the
ceiling.
The ceiling.
All
right, there
right,
you go.
There you go.
Okay.
Who said I couldn't handle this stuff?
Senator Guillory, I'm here in Florida, and they're building toll roads, and they're improving their roads and infrastructure. I mean, it's amazing how they're doing it. And people complain about being a Floridian. You complain about the tolls, but then you see that they take funding from that, and they fund some of the programs that Jack and I talked about the recreational programs and where those toll roads pass to, the childhood education programs, things of that nature. But anytime that I tell somebody that I'm from Louisiana, the first thing they talk about, man, Louisiana got the worst roads I ever drove on. And they got the raggedest bridges that I ever been across. So knowing that that our roads and bridges are in dire need of improvement, what are your plans to secure federal funding for these critical infrastructure projects that we know, like I said, in the state of Florida, you're talking about thousands of jobs that are being created just because they have the funding to create, to build new roads. So some of it is private, some of it is state, some of it is federal funded. But what are your plans to secure federal funding or even private funding for these critical infrastructure projects?
If you take a look at the big highway in Afghanistan, there's a major multi-billion-dollar fabulous highway from the city to the airport and out into the country, into the countryside. If you take a look at that highway, you know whose dollars built that highway? American taxpayers' dollars built that highway. If we could build a fabulous highway in Afghanistan, surely we can fix Louisiana's highways and bridges. We have to be able to do that. The money is there. We just have to redirect it from overseas to home and fix our roads and bridges. We will employ hundreds of thousands of people. And I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of Americans, of legal Americans. I'm not talking about all these illegal immigrants who come in and scoop up a whole lot of jobs. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about hiring Americans to do American work.
Yeah, it's a very big thing. It's a very big economic boost to the communities down here in Florida. And like I said, it's toll roads, so it's a public-private partnership. The money goes back to the communities that those toll roads run through. I mean, it finances the projects, and of course, the private companies have to make a little profit, but it does. I mean, it seems like the roads are always. I've been in Florida 4 years, and I've never rode on a road that was nowhere near the conditions of the roads, even the highways of Mississippi or Louisiana. I've never rode on roads that you may be scared to go on at night because they're just not safe, or they've been around. Some of these bridges have been around before I was born.
Yep.
And when you have that, my mother is scared of bridges, and I'll be honest with you, I'm scared of bridges too. My mother was in New Orleans. She lives in Georgia, but she was in New Orleans this past weekend, and she rode across. She was going to Chalmette, and she rode across that old Chalmette bridge, and she sent me a picture of it. And I said, man, there's no way. I said, I can't believe they even got you to go across that bridge. just looking at it, it's rusted, and that bridge is important. But when you see those type of bridges, when you see traffic backed up going to Baton Rouge, then that's the only way to get from New Orleans to Baton Rouge is that one bridge. And you need another bridge built across there. They've been talking about doing it, like I said, before I was born, probably, but it never happened. So, like I said, just being in Florida and seeing the economic opportunities just by the job. And one of the things that you said that's very important to that, the FDOT, you have to be an American citizen to be employed to work. If they came on the job site and one of your workers can't prove that he's an American citizen, not here just to work, not on a work visa. He has to be living here, paying taxes to be employed. So that ensures that that money that they're paying him to work for those 5 or 10 years, he doesn't leave and go back to his home country and live like a king. He actually supports and pays taxes here in America. So
Okay.
that's a very important thing that, you know, we when we talk about bringing these jobs back, you know, and it's not to offend any illegal immigrants, because some of them, I mean, some of the places that they come from, I mean, I would be trying to get away from there too, you know, but you want to do it the right way. But when you have companies receiving federal dollars and they're employing illegal immigrants, you know, that's something that, you know, you have to stop that.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that definitely has to stop. And like I said, I feel like in Louisiana, is not, we don't have the people in those positions that's willing to fight back.
Yeah.
You know, so
Find one. This one right here.
Well, that's a cool, that's certainly a cool thing. You mentioned not, you didn't say it, but we did talk about our juveniles and putting you know, resources there, bringing those dollars that we are spending, you know, across the pond in other places and bring them back over here. How do you envision, because we have had, you know, almost 40 years of like a cyclical decline in the family pods and that kind of stuff. So you're almost 4 generations out of, you know, where people actually saw what a normal, quote unquote, normal family looked like. And how do you envision spending additional dollars to tackle those young people who just got caught and helping to, you know, they just got caught into the system? How do you put the right resources in that to go over and say, yeah, I got a great program over here for my kindergartners and on up, you know, they're going to follow this pattern. But for those that didn't have that opportunity, how do we put the resources? What do you envision there to address the now?
When I was in the Senate,
Mhm.
I brought back to Opelousas a $50 million state-of-the-art juvenile facility. It had all of the counseling. It had all the education facilities. I'm talking about carpentry and electricians and welding and all of those skilled trades. It had culinary arts. It was a place where they could be taken care of physically, emotionally, and academically. $50 million facility. The politicians didn't want that here. This was about 12 years ago. So we don't want another jail for our kids here. And now they're desperate for something like that, because kids who get into the system now have to go all of the way to Alabama or Arkansas just because of the short-sightedness. One of the things that I bring to this job is the experience, the wisdom, the foresight to be able to understand, to analyze problems and look forward to those solutions and bring those solutions into our communities. Unfortunately, and very sadly, that $50 million state of the art facility does not exist. And our kids don't have all the benefits of that kind of place. But I'll still work on it.
Mhm.
yeah, one of the things, recidivism is a big issue. You know, our kids, I always tell this story, and Jack always laughs. But one day I was leaving, me and for some reason, I always find myself around the older kids. So one day we leaving the gym, and a 16-year-old kid, I was about 10, 11 years old. And this is why I always tell people, it's not the kids' fault, but you have to understand. Some people don't understand the environment that these kids are coming up in. We were leaving the gym, we were passing the Family Dollar, and the 16-year-old kids touring around and told us, hey, we all finna go ahead and steal. I said, man, I ain't going in there and steal, man. I said, man, you crazy. I said, no, I ain't going in there and steal. He say, if you don't go in there and steal, I'm beating you up. So I'm 10, 11 years old, 75, 80 pounds maybe, and got this big 16-year-old kid telling me that if I don't go in here and steal some chips, because he probably was hungry or whatever, his mom and dad at that time was on drugs, and he gave me an option. He said, either you go in here and steal, or I'm going to beat you up every time I see you. And I always asked Jack, I said, Jack, what you think I did? I went in there and stole. I wasn't going to get beat up every day. I had to go back to this community. I had to go back to the like you said, the projects. I didn't want the 16-year-old kid beat me up. But because his parents or his circumstances were messed up and the environment we were in was messed up, I was forced to do something that I knew was wrong. I knew my mama would kill me if I got caught doing it, or she even found out that I was doing it. But in that circumstance is what I always say. At that moment, I became a product of my environment. And when you become a product of your environment, when all you see is bad and hear bad, then unfortunately that's the result. But one of the ways, that Jack and I always talk about, we're talking about when he's asking about juvenile rehabilitation. We just saw in Louisiana that the new governor said, hey, we're going to send the 17-year-olds to jail with the grown men. We're going to eliminate any possibility. We're going to eliminate the educational programs in the jails. We're going to eliminate the industrial programs in the prisons because they want you to stay in that cycle. You go to jail and come out an electrician. But what's the odds of you going back to jail if you get a job being an electrician? If you come out of jail and you learn how to be a plumber, you come out of jail and get a job as a plumber. What's the odds of you going back to jail because you got a job, you got a career? Your odds go way down. But if you go to jail and sit in there for 5 years, come back at 23, 24 years old and nobody willing to give you an opportunity because you don't have a skill, then what's the likelihood of you going back to jail? The likelihood of you going back to jail very, very high. So
please take a look at Louisiana's reentry program, which does exactly what you're saying. I want to introduce you to the fellow who wrote Louisiana's reentry program. He wrote it and he designed it and he passed it unanimously through the House and through the Senate. His name is Elbert Guillory.
I've got a major program. I call it one of. I call it.
We're getting close. We're getting close on time, Damon. So go ahead and hit that last question on the recreation.
But we've got a major issue with that, and like I said, reentry is very important. One of the ways I heard you mention earlier when you said about 75% of our homes don't have fathers. One of the ways for me that allowed me to survive my environment early on in Alexandria, Louisiana, they had the Boys Club on Lee Street. So, we went to the Boys Club. When I moved to Georgia, Macon, Georgia has a very healthy parks and recreational program. They keep their parks and recreations open year-round. They have after-school programs. They have summer feeding programs. They have tutoring programs. And they keep all the facilities open until 9 o'clock. That allows those kids who don't want to go back to their environment, they've got somewhere safe, they've got somewhere to take care of. Well, in District 6, many rural communities lack adequate park and recreational facilities. And that's very important when you're talking about our kids. You know, they need that for to have some alternatives. So how do you plan to secure funding to make sure that the major cities in your district, like Opelousas, Alexandria, Shreveport, those areas, have adequate recreational facilities, and also some of those rural areas in your district that don't have any park or recreational facilities or don't have the funding or programs to actually implement a park and recreational system in the way that it would actually benefit the youth in the community. So how do you plan to secure funding for the building or renovation and construction of those essential community assets?
If we can afford to send $60 billion to Ukraine, we can afford to send $10 billion to Louisiana. I'm going to redirect that money so that money is coming to protect and take care of American citizens, Louisiana citizens, citizens of CD6 right here. That's what I'm going to do.
So,
right.
So, Senator, let me ask you this question. This is a follow-up to that question about redirecting the money. If we know that we've been neglecting home, and not just here in Congressional District number 6, but all over the country, you know, especially in the urban and the rural communities, we have almost created, you know, they are just acceptable casualties of this war that we're in. And we've been sending our resources outside of the country. How do we convince the other colleagues, them other, 500 and I forget the actual number, 535 other partners that you might have, how do you convince them to say, hey, let's take care of the home before we go somewhere else?
I've been arguing cases before juries all my life, crafting arguments that can convince people to do the right thing. That's what I'm going to do in Washington, D.C. I've got to convince all of those other people to do the right thing. I've got to show them the pictures of what I'm talking about. I have to show them the people, the problems that we're having back home and how desperately we need that money. And then I'm going to show them what they're doing with the money. Say, look, don't give me all of this. Just give me 5% of it. Send that 5%. Just take it right out of this piece of budget right here and send it. Give me another part of the budget and send it to CD6 in Louisiana. I can promise you 24 hours a day, I will be fighting very hard for our people because government is not fighting for our people. And I believe truly in my God. I believe in this country and I believe in common sense. You can count on that. And I got a big mouth.
Yeah, me and Jack always says at some point, common sense gonna take over ego. You know, you can have ego, but at some point, the common sense got to kick in.
Yeah, it does.
You know,
it just seems like it's taking a whole lot for the.
It's taking longer than it's a lot of egos. It's taking longer for us, but I just want to say, Senator Guillory, thank you for your opportunity to run for this seat. Thank you for being courageous enough to step up and run for that seat. I always joke with Jack. I said, Jack, this a federal seat. This I call it going fed. I said when we started talking to these guys about a federal seat, I said we going fed. I say so our community probably hadn't quite grasped the importance of this seat, but this is a federal district. This not the city council money. This ain't $300 million budget. We talking about $1 trillion budget. We just want a little piece. We want somebody to go there and fight for our little piece of that $1 trillion budget and bring it back to District 6 so we can get the equity that we deserve. All we asking for is equity. So I just want to thank you for everything that you've done for, our community, not only locally, but for our people in general. It's always an honor and pleasure to meet somebody that was part of the civil rights movement that paved the way for me to be able to go wherever I want to go and do what I want to do. I joke with Jack them all the time. I said, boy, you better be lucky this ain't the 50s and 60s. Because the stuff we do, I tell them, I said, the stuff we do and the way we reach the people. So, boy, you better be glad this ain't the 50s and 60s, boy, because you wouldn't survive relaying the information and telling the truth how we tell the truth if there was 1954 instead of 2024. So really? Thank you for fighting for that. Thank you for fighting for freedom. And Jack, you go ahead and let the people know. But again, I wish you the best of luck, Senator Guillory. I'm glad that you got the knowledge and have an ideal and a plan of what you want to do for the people in that community. And I'll be back there in about 5 years. So I hope you make some major changes, because if for some reason it don't happen, I'm gonna make Jack seek one of them seats and we're gonna flip stuff upside down when I get back there. I hope I can come back to some change. I don't want to have it, because when I come back there, we're gonna make some change if it ain't been made. So yeah. I see you got the fighting spirit, so I wish you the best of luck. And people, you got somebody got a plan. Hey, that's what we need. So thank you again, sir.
Thank you. Old warrior still on the battlefield.
I hear you. Senator, I definitely want to say, thank you for joining us today and sharing your vision for the 6th Congressional District. We appreciate your insights and your dedication to the state of Louisiana, and specifically, to the 6th Congressional District. We know it's new, and it should be challenging to deal with the personalities from Shreveport to Baton Rouge and everything in between. That's going to be very interesting. To the viewers out there, thank you for tuning in this evening and engaging with us. But before I want to say that, Senator, did you have something that you needed to say to our audience out here before we proceed to leave?
Only that I'm a seasoned, wise warrior. I've been on the battlefield these many years. The Lord has prepared me for this moment in my life. He has sent me out on the battlefield one more time, and I'm ready to go and fight this battle, fight this war to protect our people, because government is not doing that right now.
That's right. That's right.
Remember, your vote is your voice. So make sure you get out and vote. And I definitely want to, emphasize that with our young folk. You guys are the majority now. You're in control now. So you can get out there, go vote, and make a difference in what we're dealing with right now here at home. We also want to extend a special thank you to the folk who advertise with us: Math Makes Sense, National Auto and Tire, Sadler's Towing, and Long's Products. Your support make this show possible. Until next time, stay safe, stay informed. Senator, again, thank you so much.
I'll see my people next week. I'll be back in Alexandria next week for a few days, so I'll get to enjoy some of that Louisiana food. So,
all right.
Thank you again, Senator.
Holler at me and let's have a cup of coffee.
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna hold you to